Firstly, an apology to Jim Pardee. I was a rather disgruntled guy about a week or two ago. I apologize, I got really mean old mannish with you. When I first started my thing, that really ruffled a lot of the typical feathers. I was speaking mostly to, in my mind's imagination, not an individual person, but a mentality, a mindset, a groupthink, if you will. And it was to that I was thinking, in addition to expressing my own honest feelings. To which I got the usual, there's no pudding or proof or meat and potatoes in the response. And so, being frustrated with my own life at that moment, that night, the sort of folks that kind of like, they're the ones that are going to respond to this, and I kind of called it in my original post, they're going to respond with no real proof in the pudding, just with abstract things. They can't really empirically come up with anything at all. But I'm getting sucked into it again. To my friend James, I sincerely apologize that I got so disgruntled that I was too ignorant not to just take a quick breath and count to 10. And I sincerely apologize for being a jerk. To Julia, I like your style as a media celebrity, and your style and what you have to say and your interviewing style and whatnot, and just your overall countenance. I would just add, before I apologize for whatever it is that caused you to inform me that I, quote unquote, all capital letters, earned a block. Because there's a lot more things that I actually do in my actual existential, individual, lived existence to earn things for myself. And I really do the best job that I can. So to hear somebody say that I earned a block just really rubbed me the wrong way when I was already rubbed the wrong way from my own bad week and bad night. I'm sorry. To both of you, I would like, and to the rest of the world that witnessed the entire debacle, to which I'm just letting go of, like a person in a tug of war with somebody else that just lets go of the rope. I let go. I would like to assure you all, James, Julia, and the populace, such as I think one of my best friends of all time, who put in his words of solidarity with the emotionally traumatized parties. I assure you all that from here on out, I am strictly, and when I say here on out, you can consult me privately if you ever wish to investigate the veracity of when I say from here on out. I mean from here until the end of my time. I am strictly apolitical. And I was apolitical a long time ago when I noticed that there's always two opposing sides that endlessly groupthink and ping pong with each other, and there's no solution to it, and there's probably only one puppet master, if you will. And I know that sounds like conspiracy theory, but it could be conspiracy fact. And in fact, if it is a conspiracy fact or a conspiracy theory, imagine we're NASA astronaut trainees in a flight simulator. Why do we go through endless flight simulations? To confront any scenario, however unlikely? It could be conspiracy theory or conspiracy fact. I'm kind of like unto a NASA astronaut trainee in my flight or my mindset wherein existence for us is mortal. Just like going up in a rocket or a spaceship. It's a desperately important mortal situation with a lot of variables to master, no matter how unlikely. Because why? To ensure the flight of the survival. So if I were to say that for a long while now, for years and years, I've kind of been like, wow, there's two sides that are endlessly squabbling, quote unquote, ideologically, with their water cooler talking points week after week. And it never ends. There's never any real consensus or anything. I mean, for a little bit, everybody got behind George W. Bush after 9/11, right? I mean, even I did. I was like, I couldn't believe he got elected in the Rehnquist putsch. You know what I mean? Not my president. And then after that happened, I'm like, well, damn, dude. Like, it's us against fucking savagery. And it's still endless ping pong, and I'm getting sucked into it again, and I've committed to being strictly from here on out forever in my life apolitical. So I'll just leave it at that. As a person that tries to equate metaphorically in a useful, pragmatic way, in a almost philosophically and practical paramedical sort of way, the protocols of the life-saving process, not just in actual emergencies of the physical sort, like car crashes or disasters, but on a world historical level. And so for a long time in my adulthood, I've kind of wow, it's just a never-ending squabbling between these two sides. What if they're both employees of the same puppet master that are meant to distract all of us from realizing the real point? And what might be the real point? Who knows? But if you consider the NASA astronaut flight simulation trainee analogy or allegory, you consider all things. You don't just say, oh, you see how Kennedy's head went back into the left? That means there was a conspiracy now. People there wasn't a conspiracy, there's a perfectly good reason. For folks that are okay, we can't trust human beings throughout time, probably just folks on this planet that we can't trust as far as we can throw them right now as we speak. And the nature of this flight that we're on is a mortal deal. And who knows what's going to happen. So why don't you mull over every possibility and then try to troubleshoot how to confront any possibility. Let's say there is a puppet master, a ping pong master that provides all of us with these opposing talking points, and we're constantly arguing over this, that, the other thing, blah, blah, blah. When I got sucked into my verifiably non-apolitical scroll about how I really don't think Donald Trump is, in my feelings, I can't not express my feelings. I truly feel that he hasn't really done anything that worthy of the unbelievable onslaught against him since day one. And right off the bat, what do we get? The ping pong folks. And so I was just grumpy that week, and I apologize to James Pardee, sort of Julia, and Jay. I mean, I'm going to be his friend forever, and he knows it, and I know it, so that's all that matters. And I will strictly be apolitical in the future. I do not want to get sucked up into being on either side of the squabbling ping pong futility. I'm thinking about more important things, if you ask me personally. In my mind, that's what I feel. I'm trying to honestly figure out how a universe that began 14 billion years ago, roughly around that time, we can repeatedly confirm and demonstrate by observation and mathematics that something occurred that consisted of hydrogen, a little bit of helium, and a sliver, a lithium. And under the four fundamental forces that we just know about thus far, It was the reason that hydrogen coagulated together with each other and clumped into oceans of hydrogen, and the biggest ones exploded into heavy elements that went on to create heavier elements, which then went on into an unrecorded early universe bukkake free-for-all orgy, wherein every element interacted under the four fundamental forces, at least that we know, in every which way that you can imagine. Okay? Until we got like complex chemical atoms that began as helium or hydrogen and helium, and then turned into like beyond iron, carbon, this, that, the other thing. And then there was chemicals, and there was like whatever caused precursors of RNA, DNA, the life process, the cell. And then you see how the universe has been advancing like steadily forward from way back when, in no direction but forward, from hydrogen to the life process, to the development of different forms of atomic life, eventually consciousness, mammals, like protecting the young, love, fun, invention, and technology. And from the advent of us in the atomic universe, it seems to me that there's been a vestigial appendix hanging on, stalling what started with hydrogen advancing forward. And the appendix, what is that? The coercive will of the folks from day one that have oppressed, imprisoned, cajoled, threatened, raped, killed, tortured, killed the loved ones of people that crossed them, to enslave them, to make them obey their will. Like almost like on the animal kingdom level, if you go to the wilds of Africa or anywhere in the animal kingdom where it's like an ecosystem of different animal species living together, that sort of atomic tidal flow, if you will, currents like working just in kind of a perfect natural symmetry, like the weak are preyed upon by the strong. And it worked then, but then we attained self-awareness and the individual like fucking mammalian, moralistic fucking like love for one's own self and love for one's own loved ones, which led to like the golden rule and like the atomic universe that began with hydrogen. It complexified to the point where ideas and consciousness started steering the atoms like advancement, but a vestigial appendix that serves no purpose anymore, like for whatever reason, on the bridge between hydrogen becoming complex chemicals, becoming life, becoming the animal kingdom, when it became consciousness in us, and we started conceiving of ideas and then realizing that there is a sort of moral absolutism in the mental abstract consciousness, which is totally real at this point, about the golden rule. Like you yourself as one consciousness within yourself, you wouldn't just say, okay, because that person just wants to power me and because they probably can, I understand why I should be a slave and die and suffer. No. And just like if you went to any tyrant in the past, present, or future that just rules because they can, because of the power, the ambition, and the cognitions and behavioral like instincts to like achieve it and will. If you were to ask them like, hey, theoretically, if something, somebody, or some entity in this universe like became out of like wherever in being and was like vastly more powerful than you, the ultimate tyrant, would you just be like, okay, that entity is way stronger, I'll just like realize that I deserve whatever and understand like I could be tortured and like mercilessly and prolonged until I die. Like, would Kim Jong-un do that if some power came from above? I'd be like, okay, I understand. No, there's a contradiction there that you understand about how it's real. And the weird thing is it started with like physics, right? Or maybe it was consciousness too. But it started with just brute forces of physics and atomic like behavior, starting with hydrogen, eventually advanced into consciousness and the will to freedom. And the ideas, they're kind of like incontrovertible and like kind of like airtight. Because anybody that tries to coerce you or control you or be the puppet master of this ping pong squabbling, because at this point they're so advanced that the vestigial useless appendix of the animal kingdom has also got grafted onto it, like think tanks and consciousness and like groupthink postgraduate, like serious experts in every field, wizards working on how to keep their vestigial appendix in control. And there's an essential contradiction there that cannot be denied by even the one in control. But they'll still just kill you anyways if they have to, or kill the ones you love, or just make things bad just to have their way. But they cannot deny that if they were put in the same situation that they would understand and be like, okay. Well, they wouldn't, because as an individual atomic consciousness, the tyrant like cares for himself or herself and cares for the people around him, maybe sometimes. At least, I mean, Hitler cared for Blondie to a point, right? My point is, I'm kind of fixated in a sort of allegory of the cave. See ancient philosopher Plato, and almost like kind of perceiving my own existence day by day, year after year, decade after decade, in this phase of human history, in that universe that started with atomic hydrogen and now built into all the wonderful possibilities that the universe could be, with like just unlimited freedom and equality for all, and just like kind of like the best sort of utilitarian way for as many people to like fucking understand that like it's best to just like treat your neighbor as you would yourself and work together. But it seems that there's something hanging on. Otherwise, if there wasn't something hanging on, like we would have worked together probably long ago to overcome this thing. But there's this urge, this animal will to control, to power, this vestigial appendix, if you will, of the universe's advancement. And it's almost like a disgrace to the wonder of what the universe is that we can fathom thus far and what it could be. That the law of the jungle actually now has advanced technology probably beyond what we know about. And we're still in a state of perpetual, like, I mean, hello? How the fuck did hydrogen expand into helium, into heavier elements, into the life process? And the life process, like, fucking figured out wings, eyes, mind, music, fun, like moral imperatives, artificial intelligence, now quantum computing, and like brain-computer interaction, to the point that it's completely conceivable that the lineage and the rightful heir to the future advancement of the universe could be, it went from hydrogen to us. We're atoms that came from the original hydrogen, and we made machines. And it probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't go through a flourishing phase in fits and spurts, wherein people were allowed to spread freedom and ideas freely. That's what caused, like, the advancement that caused our ability to create machines that now can be put into a human brain that make, like, an amputee with a prosthesis feel with the mechanical finger stoppers the quality. I can feel it. Do you know what that means? Or a quadriplegic with a chip that allows him from a distance, or her from a distance, to move a cursor on a computer screen just by thinking or intent. That implies that the possibilities in the future, and we know how quick things have been progressing, and especially now that quantum computers are were just born, like infants, right? The way our traditional binary computers are now can translate any language instantaneously, like search through building after building, 23 floors on each building of medical journals instantaneously, and be the palm assistant of a doctor that couldn't possibly sift through that amount of information in a million lifetimes. And then, geez, if this guy got the first enhanced improvement on the chip from our traditional computers that allows paraplegics with prosthesis to actually feel their prosthesis sensation of hitting the wall because of the connection. And then another quadriplegic with an implant can move a cursor just by thinking about it. It's in all probability possible that the atomic universe that began with hydrogen could possibly upload a complete duplicate copy of a complete human brain and consciousness. And then when the computer has a copy of self-conscious, self-reflective awareness, and who knows, it's probably not going to be the same person, but inside the machine it is the same, an exact duplicate, only at this point, within the first 10 minutes of that person being a duplicate of itself in the machine, it's already been able to do hundreds of years worth of thinking, and because it's a computer now. It's a person in a computer with a person in it, or a copy of a person. And then by the next morning, it completely figured its entire existence out, its own unconscious, perhaps the collective unconscious, maybe figured out the nature of atoms and the four fundamental forces within a matter of weeks. And then who knows, the human race and its computing technology and its ability to advance at speeds that could take the development of the universe that began with hydrogen into realms that we can't even imagine, that would be millions of years beyond anything we can possibly even imagine, in a matter of months or weeks, and then a matter of minutes, and then milliseconds. But we're all squabbling. I'm sorry, James Pardee, that I was hobbling with you. I got real kind of nasty, and I apologize for it. All right. You prick.